Hi everyone, and welcome back. It's Boone coming at you today with no makeup and a very low effort visual presentation of myself for this video. But you know what? It doesn't matter. Today I wanted to talk about something that's unfortunately been on my mind quite a bit these last few days, which is internalized transphobia. And it's a bummer topic for sure, and I kind of debated whether or not I actually wanted to make this video, but I figured that it's important to acknowledge these kind of feelings and not just push it aside and ignore it, as tempting as that may be. My personal feelings of internalized transphobia often come with a lot of shame. It's a complicated feeling, to lack pride in my identity. I try to celebrate my own identity and uplift the trans identities of others as much as possible, and I certainly try and do that on a conscious vocal level. I try to make pride posts and that kind of thing and share supportive messages about being trans, and I try my best to internalize those positive messages about being trans, and I think I've done a decent job. And certainly along my journey of transition, I have become better at self-acceptance, accepting and embracing my trans identity. But with that being said, I have also very much internalized a lot of the negative messages that are out there about being trans, which is why I try so hard to spread the positive messages and really internalize those too. But because of everything else, because of the other negative things that I've had to hear and experience and try so hard not to believe throughout my life, it takes the extra effort to believe in the positive ideas. And so I wanted to do a video today talking about my own experiences with internalized transphobia, and I want to do my best to talk about this from a perspective of me and make sure it's clear that this is my own personal account and not the experience of every trans person in the world, because obviously I don't speak for every trans person in the world. I can't. I only experience what I experience. However, I do think a lot of what I'm going to talk about is probably relevant to many trans people. I know I've been hesitant to talk about a lot of the internalized transphobia I've experienced in the past, because I'm worried it's going to bum other trans people out and make them feel shitty about being trans. But I've actually found most of the time I have opened up about it, other people gain some kind of catharsis through it because they feel similarly or they've had their own experiences, and we kind of just are able to be open about some of the shittier parts about being trans, because at the end of the day, as much as we want to be proud and celebratory of the trans identity, it comes with many, many hardships for most, if not all of us, and I don't want to ignore those hardships, because at the end of the day, I kind of think that does more harm than it does good. And so for me to talk about internalized transphobia, it feels pretty much impossible to do that without also talking about my sexual orientation, because as I have mentioned in the past, my exclusive attraction to women has been a source of dysphoria for me, and a pretty significant one at that, because heteronormativity dominates the world. Not experiencing attraction to men has made me feel, and continues to make me feel, like less of a woman. It feels like an integral part of womanhood that I am missing. And obviously there are cis lesbians, I know that. But most of my cis girlfriends aren't lesbians. Most of them, bi or straight, have experienced or continue to experience attraction to guys, which is something I haven't. And so when I'm in a group of girls, and I'm the only trans girl, which happens and has happened a lot throughout my life, when those kind of conversations come up, or even when they don't come up about being attracted to guys and being into guys, I feel very much like the other. I feel different. I feel like an outcast. And it's hard, because even when those conversations aren't happening, I feel this sense, just being around cis girls, that I am missing a certain experience of womanhood that comes with being cis that I will just never have. Or even if I feel like I am feeling quite confident in my identity and like we're all kind of on the same page, still in the back of my mind, I'm worrying whether or not they actually view me as a girl or the same kind of girl as them. There's just always this insecurity around being trans in a group of cis people. And that's where a lot of the shame comes from. It's an uncertainty of how other people see you. Certainly, I have many friends and people that I know who have known me my whole life and have known me before I came out as trans. And I'm never really gonna have full confidence that those people view me as a girl. I mean, I can believe it for sure. I know that I know that they're supportive of me, and I know that they would never say they see me as a guy. And, you know, most of me believes they probably do see my true identity, at least to some extent, and accept my identity as a girl. But there is just in the back of my head, I'm always going to be worried, like, do they still see the boy that they saw all those years before I came out? And it can be really painful in a lot of ways to maintain relationships that started before coming out. There is kind of this desire to start fresh because there's a lot of painful memories of pretending to be a boy, basically, for the majority of my life. And so there's this strong desire to detach myself from that, which again, I think kind of sparks a lot of the transphobia I have internalized. I wish that I were cis, and it sucks to say that, and it makes me feel crappy to say that. It makes me feel like I'm being transphobic. But if I'm being honest, would my life be easier if I were cis? Yes. Is it all bad being trans? No. I mean, it's definitely come with upsides too. I think I understand myself and my emotions on a deeper level. I think that transitioning has been like a wonderful learning experience for me and has kind of helped me understand myself and the world in a way that I maybe never would have if I had been cis. But there's always going to be a part of me that wishes I was. And there's always going to be a part of me that wishes my childhood could have been spent as a girl the entire time. Because even though I feel like I've gotten very far in my transition now, and I tend to get gendered correctly by strangers and kind of am able to navigate the world as most cis girls would in a lot of levels, the way I came to experience my womanhood, you know, my attachment to being a girl was a progress. It was a process, you know, it was gradual. When I was a 9-year-old wishing and hoping beyond hope that I could somehow be a girl and didn't realize that being trans was a possibility or a thing, I imagined there being some magic wand that would be flicked and then all of a sudden it would happen. I didn't imagine myself going through this process where both I had to convince other people that I was a girl and then also kind of convince myself that. Because I talk about knowing that I was a girl from age 9, but on some ways I didn't think of it that way because I didn't think it was possible to be a girl. I mean, what had been hammered into my head from the very start was that you are born what you're born and that's it. And there's no changing that. And though I don't really feel like I changed my gender, I feel like I always was a girl, I had to kind of work to reconstruct my concept of gender and understand it in this new way that allowed me to express myself and exist as a girl, which I'm doing now. And so when I reflect on being a girl and how I've come to accept that, it's hard to forget about the little kid in me that never thought this could be possible. And I think in some ways, on some very subconscious, you know, hidden little areas of my brain, I still kind of don't believe it's possible. There's, I think, a part of me that I'm going to probably have to work to fight against for the rest of my life, that just doesn't really accept the fact that my trans experience of womanhood is just as legitimate as the cis experience of womanhood. Because I spent most of my life not understanding that being transgender was a thing that existed. And when you spend most of your life not knowing about your current experience of your gender, it's really hard to kind of reconcile the legitimacy of that. At least it is for me. And so I think kind of a lot of the shame and the desire to be seen as cis comes from this insecurity in knowing that many other people do not believe in the legitimacy of trans people. And, you know, I certainly preach this a lot. I know a lot of other trans people who preach this. It's not a compliment to be called or to have someone say to you, you look cis. And I do believe that because that implies it's bad to look trans. And there's not really any such thing as looking trans or cis. We all look different, and being cis is not better than being trans. But with that being said, I do have a very strong desire to look cis. And when I find out that a stranger suspects that I'm trans or assumes that I'm trans without me explicitly stating it, it can put me in a funk for a day or more. And that's actually kind of what sparked this video. And after kind of reflecting on it for a while, I just sort of realized it's not because I have any conscious belief that being trans is a negative thing. I don't at all. The reason I feel shame about it and feel crappy when people don't assume I'm cis is because it immediately puts me in a state of concern that they don't view me as a girl, or that they don't view me as much of a girl as they would if they thought I were cis. And that consequently makes me kind of question my own validity as a woman in a way. Because, you know, so much of our existence, I feel like, kind of depends on how we're perceived, or at least, you know, we have our own self-perception, but that is certainly not in isolation of others' perceptions of ourselves. And when I'm constantly worried about whether people actually truly see me as a girl, or if they see me as some kind of weird gender that doesn't really exist, or they see me as a guy, then it puts me into this sort of existential state of dread where it's like, okay, I know that I'm not a guy, but if the world can't see me as a girl, what really am I existing as? And it's a really hard emotion to explain. It's a hard mental state to put you in, because it's truly unique, I think, to the trans experience, and it's hard to compare it with anything else, but it's a lot. And you know, the point of this video isn't to try and just like mope about how hard it is to be trans. It's trying to just, I want to kind of shed light on the complicated and conflicting feelings that I have, and I think a lot of other trans people have, around wanting to be cis, but still really, really wanting to be legitimately proud and vocally proud about being trans. Because that's the situation I'm in. I do feel proud about being trans in a lot of ways, but at the same time, there is still a lot of negative messages and negative beliefs about trans people that I've internalized and have to fight every day to disregard and to challenge. And it's not easy, and it makes me feel like an enemy of trans people a lot of the times when I know that I'm not. And so I just wanted to have like a little kind of open vent session about it, because I think it's an important topic. And I don't know, this video was not the most cheerful, but I think it was kind of an important one, and I hope that maybe it got some people thinking or helped people not feel as alone. Regardless, it's something I wanted to talk about, and I appreciate you all sticking with me as I kind of just let my thoughts run free for a little while, as I tend to do on this channel. So with that being said, I want to continue making videos. I'm working on trying to find a more comfortable and appealing setup. If in the meantime you have ideas of what you want to see me talk about, related to or unrelated to being a lesbian and being trans, just please let me know. and I will do my best to make that happen. So thank you all very much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.